name is Father Jason Welle. I am the Director of Studies at PISAI in Rome, and I will be introducing our three presenters and moderating this concluding panel. I would invite everyone who follows the panel to save their questions until the very end. After each of the three presentations, if someone has a question for immediate clarification, something factual or perfunctory, you'll be invited to ask it immediately. But questions of substance and seriousness, I'd like to wait and save all questions until the panel has concluded. Each speaker will have 18 to 20 minutes, and I will let you know by voice when you have 2 minutes remaining. I invite everyone who's attending this panel, please, if you have any questions, you're welcome to type them into the Q&A in the chat, or of course you'll be allowed to ask them by voice at the end. Our first speaker is Dr. Barbara Pemberton of Wichita Baptist University in Arkadelphia, Arkansas, where she serves as Professor of Christian Missions and Director of the Carl Goodson Honors Program. She holds a doctorate from Baylor University and frequently speaks on Christian-Muslim relations and has taught widely on mysticism. Dr. Pemberton's paper is entitled Polishing the Mirror of the Heart: Sufi Poetic Reflections as Interfaith Inspiration for Peace. And I must say, I'm particularly excited for this one. Dr. Pemberton, the floor is yours.
I am so glad you're with us, Dr. Welle. I was hoping that you were going to be here today. Artists and poets inspire, and this paper actually grew out of an encounter that I had at one of these conferences in New York, where we heard the most amazing self-professed Sufi young man poet read a poem. And I realized then, I've always loved mysticism, but the idea of bringing that poem and poetry into my classroom as a means of students coming to a little more understanding. And I will go ahead and warn you that, of course, to a student, it becomes rap. And so I will be shared this. My paper is thematic. And of course, in poetry, there's so many themes to pick from and so many ways you can look at poetry. But I did select Purifying the Heart, the Mirror of the Heart, because we're kind of in a mucky world right now, a little bit, and it is a favorite theme. But I do weave through it poetry, really poetic expression, not necessarily always poetic discourse and sacred text. And I had to really sort down a lot to get this within the time frame, but I will end with some rap. So do call me on time so I won't miss that, please. So the title, Polishing the Mirror of the Heart, Sufi Poetic Reflections as Interfaith Inspiration for Peace. And I do think it's very inspiring personally. Seeking the Beloved. I'll start with one quote from Sinai. The high road to God for your spirit, by which your prayers can reach God, is the polishing of the mirror of the heart. Early within the Muslim community, there were individuals who sought a deeper devotional experience rising out of their love of God. Rich with images and metaphors, Islamic mystical poetry appeared featuring three interlocking themes within the context of seeking the beloved. These themes of the heart, the path of purification of the heart, the remembrance of the beloved as expressed in the prayer of the heart, and the polished mirror of the heart are descriptive of the Gnostic life, the journey or path of purification one must take in search for God. This early Islamic mystic spirituality drew from rich sources, including the Quran, the Mi'raj accounts, and the vast Arabic, Persian, and Urdu poetic heritages. The original secular pre-Islamic qasida, consisting of a prelude, desert journey, and panegyric, developed into a broader style medieval poem with a variety of subgenres, including wine ode, love poem, and that provided the nuance of divine love. This genre addresses themes spanning the Islamic world and has survived generations in spite of philosophical developments and changing socio-political situations. Female mystic, we haven't spent hardly any time on, Rabia, is credited with introducing the strong element of selfless love, love for love's sake, into Sufism. This is attributed to her, and it's one of my favorites. O Lord, if I worship you because of fear of hell, then burn me in hell. If I worship you because I desire paradise, then exclude me from paradise. But if I worship you for yourself alone, then deny me not your eternal beauty. Ibn Arabi, spiritual master par excellence, taught that all people must ask how they can find God. Upon receiving an answer, each individual must set out to verify that answer by finding God in actuality, not in theory. Well-known Islamic tradition explains why God ultimately reveals himself, reflecting his attributes like sunbeams on a mirror. We find in Hadith, I was a hidden treasure, and I yearned, I loved to be known intimately. So I created the heavens and the earth so that they may know me intimately. And then another, my heavens cannot contain me, neither can my earth, but the heart of my faithful devotee suffices me. Hazrat Inayat Khan writes, I searched and searched and searched, and I could not find thee anywhere, but at last I have found thee, hidden in the shell of my heart. Sufism identifies three avenues of spiritual receptivity: the heart that knows God, the spirit that loves God, and the inner soul that contemplates God. Al-Ghazali teaches that faith is acquired only through the life of the heart. Qalb, the word heart in Arabic, derives from the same root as the verbal noun fluctuation, connoting transformation, change, reversal. The mystic recognizes the heart as a place of continuous fluctuation, as supported by Hadith, in which God is called the turner of hearts, or he who makes hearts fluctuate. Tradition instructs, verily, the hearts of all the sons of Adam are between the two fingers out of the fingers of the compassionate Lord as one heart. He turns that to any direction he likes. O Allah, the turner of hearts, turn our hearts to thine obedience. This explains the heart's tremendous capacity. It dwells between the fingers of God. Sheikh Hafiz explains, my heart is the secret place where his love abides. My eyes hold the mirror to his face. Look not at the outward poverty of Hafiz, for his inner self is the treasure house of the divine love. The path of purification of the heart. Rumi expresses not only the universal search for God, but the common frustration of falling short and needing for repentance. Rumi, and I quote, return to yourself, O heart, for from the heart a hidden road can be found to the beloved. Come into the heart, the place of contemplating God. Though it is not so now, it can be made so. Sufi wisdom teaches that to know yourself is to know God, for the mirror of the heart reflects the divine, but only that mirror that has been cleansed of the impurities the phenomenal self has absorbed. And I'm skipping. Another from Baba Bulla Shah. You have learned so much and read 1,000 books. Have you ever read yourself? Have you gone to mosque and temple? Have you ever visited your soul? You are busy fighting Satan. Have you ever fought your ill intentions? Have you reached into the skies, but have failed to reach what's in your heart? Rumi adds, how do you ever expect your heart to become polished like a mirror without putting up with the pain of the polish? This question resonates with David's plea in the Zabur, "Create in me a clean heart, O God, and restore a right spirit within me." David continues in Psalm 139, "Search me, O God, and know my heart. Test me and know my anxious thoughts. See if there is any offensive way in me, and lead me in the way everlasting." Since God is involved in the polishing process, it is essential that the seeker be on a legitimate path, one on which the seeker may be assured that God will indeed be involved in the process. The goal of this path of spiritual discipline is not knowledge of God, but to know God, a gnosis that illumines the heart. The paradigmatic mystical journey is the Mi'raj, Muhammad's journey to the divine throne. The Sufi traveler engages in spiritual warfare to overcome those forces that would prevent entry to the throne room, which is the heart itself. The development of the disciplined, virtuous life is combined with the invocation of the divine name, or prayer of the heart, guided by the spiritual master, in order to reach the goal of direct experience of the divine. Instruction from Bahu. God is not up there, my friends, nor in the Kaaba does he reside. He is not in learned books, nor inside the minaret he hides. Don't get lost for searching him. Find yourself a truthful guide. To aid the novice in the polishing of the heart, a spiritual guide, or sheikh, assigns specific prayers and meditation. Sufi masters teach each discipline according to each disciple according to his or her individual capacities, calling upon what many scholars have considered to be an amazing awareness and application of practical psychology. Novices revere their sheikh, as illustrated by a story from the life of Rumi. One of his devoted followers, Sarianus, got in trouble with local townspeople for calling his master Lord, and was called to appear before a judge. In his eloquent defense, he explained by saying, he, Rumi, makes God real to me. Novices or wayfarers who are traveling along the path, led by their master, reach various stages and degrees of ascent toward God until, as the great philosopher Ibn Sina writes, the Gnostic passes on to the stage of contemplating God in himself. When he passes from striving to attainment, his inmost soul becomes a polished mirror reflecting the face of God. Remembrance of the beloved, the prayer of the heart. The remembrance of the beloved, dhikr, or prayer of the heart, has been called the spiritual food of the mystic, for it is at once the most sacred devotional activity performed and the avenue through which the practitioner experiences the divine. The concept is simple. The one in love loves to repeat the name of the beloved in order to keep the beloved in mind. Dhikr draws on Quranic instructions that one cannot reach God without constantly remembering him. Surah 29:45 states, and remembrance of Allah is the greatest thing in life without doubt. Kursani instructs, another poem, cleanse with love the mirror of your heart. If your heart is pure as pure must be, the image of God in it you will see. It is he who has all the worlds created. Him you must remember, morning, noon, and night. The Christian tradition has similar disciplines on which Christian understanding could develop. This would be a great thing to look through, including the Eastern Orthodox Hesychast, oft-repeated prayer of the heart. Lord Jesus Christ, Son of the living God, have mercy on me, a sinner. And that is repeated over and over. Worshippers from both traditions anticipate an experience of God, an extinction of one's own self-awareness, and one's living in and with the divine. The polished mirror of the heart. When the heart of the saint is purified by faith and religious sincerity, it becomes as a polished mirror, or void of any vision of the self and freed from any attachment to the world. In so doing, the lover has distinguished the true beloved from all distractions, journeyed to the beloved via a disciplined life with a spiritual guide, and at the end of the path, eliminated everything, including self, so that all that remains is the beloved himself. Great scholar and poet Jami says, each speck of matter did he constitute a mirror, causing each one to reflect the beauty of his image. Beware, say not, he is all beautiful and we his lovers. Thou art but the glass, and he the face confronting it, which casts its image on the mirror. He alone is manifest, and thou in truth are hid. Pure love, like beauty, coming but from him, reveals itself in thee. If steadfastly thou canst regard, thou wilt at length perceive, he is the mirror also. This is the point at which explanation slips into bewilderment. For how does anyone express a transcendent encounter with the divine or interpret another person's unique experience of the ineffable? Such is the nature of much of the mystical literature of union with God. The mystic's ego self must be annihilated before rest may be found in God. Saeed writes, said I, to whom belongs thy beauty? He replied, since I alone exist, to me. Lover, beloved, and love am I in one. Beauty and mirror, and the eyes which see. The path presents a paradox, both the journey of ascent to the throne and descent into the inner self, resolved within the heart. Hadith clarifies, he who knows his own heart knows his Lord. Here, the poetic tradition helps to express symbolically the union of the lover with the beloved in terms of bewilderment and love madness, for theological discourse is inadequate to express the ineffable. Rumi offers, the beauty of the unseen form is beyond description. Borrow 1,000 illuminated eyes. Borrow. Conclusion. The beautiful poetic language of Islamic mystical discourse speaks to hearts who long for an encounter with the divine. Sufi wisdom encompasses all of life, particularly the psychological aspect. Sufis have also historically championed the arts, for when following the Sufi path, the seeker is sensitized to look for reflections of the beauty of the supreme artisan in all things. Interest in Sufism in general, and Sufi art in particular, is growing in the West, as is the interest in Sufi writing, especially poetry and the scholarly works of Ibn Arabi. This verse provides inspiration and is easily memorized and put to music, even contemporary rap. Ibn Arabi is quoted by new French Sufi convert rap star Abd al-Malik. Everyone must, and I should have figured out a way to play this for everyone. It's ground
zero. You want me to
zero.
lay down some bass line for you now, Dr. Pemberton?
Are you going to do? Please, I can't.
No, I'll let you go.
This is the second time in a conference I don't rap, but I'm reading a rap, but it's said everyone must look up this artist. He's French rap star Abd al-Malik, Ground Zero, Ode to Love, but he is quoting Ibn Arabi, and I will read it. I'm not rapping. I could try to rap. Time was, I would criticize my neighbor if his religion was not the same as mine. But now my heart welcomes every form. It is a prairie for the gazelles, a cloister for monks, a temple for idols, a Kaaba for the pilgrim, the tablets of the Torah, and the book of the Quran. I followed the religion of love. Whatever direction taken by love's camel, That's my religion and my faith. Come on. Poetry speaks heart to heart, as deep speaks to deep, and thereby enhances interfaith encounters. Rumi instructs, and this is one of my most favorite. Surely there is a window from heart to heart. They are not separated and far from each other. Two earthenware lamps are not joined, but their light is mingled as it moves. One last quote from as the same poet that we began with. Do not confuse the image with the mirror. They are not the same. The mirror reflects the image by means of the light, and the light cannot be separated from the sun. If then the light is not reflected, the fault is in the mirror. Break loose from the chain with which you have fettered yourself, for you will be free when you have got clear of earthly fetters. Whatever increases the brightness of your heart brings nearer God's manifestations of himself to you. I hope that inspires you to search through more poetry.
Thank you very much, Dr. Pemberton. And you came in right on time. I didn't have to slow you down. So thank you for that attention. I'd like to recognize now that Dr. Abdulaziz Gaye, who wasn't in the call at the beginning. Well, welcome, Dr. Abdulaziz. Now, at this point, if any of the participants have any questions of clarification, simple questions of a fact or a repeat of a quotation for Dr. Pemberton, I would invite those questions now. But if you have questions of more serious substance, I would ask you to please hold them until the end of the panel, and we'll proceed to our second paper. Are there any immediate questions for our first panelist? Okay. Our second speaker is Dr. Saeeda Zakiya-Hasna Islam from Temple University and St. Joseph's University in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Her doctoral research focused on a figure at the center of this presentation, Bawa Muhyiddin. And everything I hear about these Hickey Center conferences is that they're focused on getting to know people and on the conversations on the side and all of this. And I would just like to say thank you. This is my fourth panel today with Zakiya, and I feel like I have gotten to know her over the course of the day. I'm very much looking forward to her paper entitled "Beyond Separations: Mystic Minds Merging Across Time and Space." The floor is yours.
Thank you, Dr. Pemberton. That was a real treat and a very hard act to follow. And then the mowing starts outside in the neighbor's house, so I had to get my headphones so that I can cancel that noise out. So anyway, thank you. And I looked at all the professional PowerPoints, and I was too embarrassed to bring in my kindergarten-ish PowerPoint, which I made after midnight last night. I'm a newly minted grandmother and no time for anything for myself. So anyway, I'll start, and I'm so glad what Dr. Pemberton actually made it easy for me, except that mine is so prosaic and hers was such a treat. So here, you've heard the title, so I don't have much time, so I'm going to read whatever I wrote for my presentation. There are mistakes and there are mystics. The later group are viewed as guideposts to revive the flagging faith of humanity, and so are the adepts, who are viewed as an axis or a pole around which the teaching revolves. Muslims call them walis, or friends of God. I'll be speaking of two such figures, the 20th century Bawa Muhyiddin and the 13th century Muhyiddin ibn Arabi, who everybody knows. You may have noted that they have the same name. It is spelled the same way in Arabic. By the way, can you hear me? Because I hear myself so loud. Okay, with the headphones. It means
yes, we hear you well. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. It means the reviver of the faith. Muhayyidin means the reviver of the faith. Muslims view the advent of such figures from time to time coming to invigorate the flagging faith of humanity. No matter how different they appear to be, their message converges on one single point. And that point is very significant. That is the only real, the haqq, the truth. Label it whatever you want. This is the point of convergence where apparently mystics of various faith traditions meet, as is exemplified by the meeting of the scholar Sayyid Hussain Nasr and the Hindu saint in India during the 50s. And in the medieval period, we have the example of Saint Francis of Assisi meeting with the Sultan that Dr. Welle spoke of earlier. For Muslims, this convergent point is Tawheed, which can be somewhat approximately translated as oneness. We all know ultimately language is not fully translatable, especially sacred language. The crux of Islam is Tawheed. A Muslim's life begins with initiation to an exoteric declaration of the faith in Tawheed. The rest of the Muslim journey entails trying to realize into the full significance of Tawheed. This entails one's getting aligned to one's essence or dhat. I have to say this because it seems a lot of Westerns are not the academics, of course, are not quite initiated into the Muslim mystic paradigm. So I thought I have to say this, which the essence inside, which requires an inner journey of progression into the qalb or heart. And I'm so glad Dr. Pemberton spoke so much about the heart. The significance of this is like, can't even go into that language. It is through the alignment to the dhat or essence that one begins to see the interconnectivity to the single source from which all came and all will return to. I'll keep on going to the metaphor of a circle. All came and all will return to. That is the point of the only real or truth or haqq. This is the realization into Tawheed. Muslim mysticism is known as Marifa. It is translated as knowing, more so as a recognition through increasing remembering in the return journey to the source. Here I'm also trying to introduce the key terms in a Muslim mystic's journey. The pervasive metaphor for the truth or haqq is the sun emanating the rays. Came out with Dr. Pemberton's poems, many of them, which is the essence or dhat or our connection to the eternal self. So as it stands, the only real in us is the eternal unseen point of connection within to our source. So to realize into our full humanity, which as per the mystics, is to realize into the divinity within. The mirror that she spoke of, those who realize into the full humanity realize into the primal Adamic nature. Adam, when he was created and stood before the angels, Adamic nature, and became mirrors per se, reflecting the divine. And it has to be a clear mirror. She ended with that kind of a poem at the end. The ineffables such as these can be only expressed with metaphors and symbolism and the mythopoetic narratives. And you heard those wonderful poems. Thus, one's full realization into the truth is expressed as disappearing into the sun. Realization to the primal Adamic nature is becoming the insane kamil, very important term in Islamic mysticism. That when the insane kamil is the mirror, it becomes the perfect mirror, or the perfect human, or the perfect man. That's a kind of attempted translation. The insane kamil is the key term when we speak of the mystic guides, as the two I'll be speaking about now. They are the realized ones, or the perfect man, coming to reiterate the message of the potentiality of each and every human being to be realized into that. Everyone can become that. That path is open to all. The simple paradigmatic process are in the three terms: Tawhid, Taqwa, and Tawakkul. Taqwa is to be vigilantly aware of Tawhid. When we're serving others, which is what we're supposed to do, we are supposed to be aware that we're serving it for that one single reality. Tawakkul, or total submission, which is a conscious journey of alignment to the rays disappearing within the metaphorical sun, the only real, the Haqq, or truth. So we are here in an experiential journey through the creation, evolving back to the return to the source through remembering and increasing recognition. The metaphor here is the circle. There are all these radial connections to the point at the center, going out into the circumference. Our journey forward in the circumference thus ends where it began. The return is radially to the center point, back to the center point, which is the only reality. This is the transformative journey to an integrative, holistic view of the realized mystic. As such, the mystical approach is evidently most conducive to transcend the apparent separations of race, religion, etc. in our contemporary globalized world with an increasingly diverse society in the West. To illustrate this approach, I chose these two mystics from different time and clime, as I view them as classic examples of the interreligiosity inherent in mysticism, sometimes apparent as in these two, sometimes more implicit. Bawa and Ibn Arabi are separated by 7 centuries. Bawa came from the east to the west and chose to be buried in the west. So his tomb is the only Sufi shrine in North America at Coatesville, Pennsylvania, USA, just an hour's drive from my house. Ibn Arabi came from Andalusia, then Spain in Europe. He came from there to the Near East in Syria and chose to be buried in Damascus. This bridging of two hemispheres makes these two figures unique among the mystics and connects them across time and space. The other distinctive feature is the interreligiosity so evident in their method of messaging. Evidently, mystics have the insight to see into the essence of the sacred narratives in each faith tradition. They dive into those for the pearls and integrate them into their message, which is essentially the same in every tradition, but tends to get lost in interpretation by vested interests. In this regard, Bawa is the most striking, as he integrates the most image-ridden tradition of Hinduism and the totally imageless Islam by weaving in tales from both to convey the same essential message. Ibn Arabi does that through Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. From Adam to Islam mandates in this legacy as essential to one's faith. This is what the mystics' messages reiterate through their experiential teachings. Teachings tend to be primarily oral. The oral method is essentially experiential, I'm getting tongue-tied, as it can be emotive by the tenor and the tone of the voice. It is emotive and evocative and gears to the immediate needs of the individual or collective audience at their level of comprehension. Bawa belongs to the legacy of these solitary figures who went into rulers to transform lives both materially. We can those pyramid in their method. If your hand really Bawa US in 71 Sri Lanka. His local Tamil language was a draw to Sufi lovers, 70s culture, spiritual. all with the East hands, makes this zikr, the chant 99 names, and his ardent followers. Perhaps the translated Arabic terms resonated with the listeners due to the universality. They eventually recognized that those were thousands of hours of video illustrates Baba's oral teachings with Arabic integrated in his Tamil, simultaneously translated to English. Baba is spoken 30 days of fasting in Ramadan and then the prayer. Only the exercises for the reminder of the true essence of which one needs to serve and sacrifice for inner good. Serve as really, I know how important that means out in the world. Creation is there for essential learning, reflection. Create a myriad one to the many, which is ultimately a dreamscape within a dreamscape. I'm talking of the many. Only real is the that silent awareness of that eternal source will save one from getting trapped in temporal. Ultimate growth is reaching into Insane Kamil or the perfect. This is return primal Adamic nature of becoming the mirror in the divine. Mentioned earlier, these folk messengers were mostly through tales and parables. They flowed out like a stream, bring to the needs and to the comprehensions of the listener's psyche. Listen to familiar tales only to be startled by realization of different interpretation by Baba. Like most figures, is known as life. Time he stepped out from the 92 when he said that he is not important messages. His life well documented. Simply erudite mystic was born into an elite middle and stayed known throughout life. He left a rich legacy this voluminous writing, where it was accessible to the masses to comprehend in the familiar with such relativistic path. He is the most significant one that Ibn Arabi left for us in the imagination and to go into the relation within the scope of meditation. His interreligiosity is most evident in his meditation of all the Abrahamic scriptures as paths in the journey. Although many of his works have created only a fraction of his opus, Futuhat al or the Meccan is available in English. Now our serious attempt is to take it. Oxford-based Muhyiddin Ibn Arabi Society devoted to message in various mediums is there. Since the mid-20th, appears to have embraced like they did the poet Rumi. There is no distinction in the message of these divergently different figures from different climes. Their advent appears to be to guide humanity to the awareness of the single source, the point beyond all separations to get the holistic view to our interconnectivity. This holistic view embraces the interreligiosity and makes such an approach ideal for our times. Can I quickly share my kindergartenish, where is it? Where is the share screen? PowerPoint, just to show you pictures of these.
Dr. Islam, you can absolutely share anything with us. We just wanted to let you know that we are unsure, but some of us are experiencing some difficulty with your sound. We know that Nazareth has been having some issues today. We're trying to figure out if it's something on our end.
Is it better? The mowing stopped. Is it better now?
Yes, you're clear for me now, but I'm not sure about everyone else.
Okay. wonder if it was more the mic. I wasn't feeling comfortable with that, but the mowing has stopped.
The issue was not the microphone. The issue was the internet connection, and we're still not sure if the internet connection problem was on your side, Doctor, or was on the side of Nazareth. So perhaps at the end there'll be some questions for clarification. But right now it seems to be working. So if you have something to share, share.
Thank you for your patience.
I think I froze. Okay, I froze in the middle. I had somewhere frozen. Okay, let's see. My friend from overseas who is still jet lagging drew this for me because I said, you know, I have to give some kind of a, okay, let's see. Right, slideshow from beginning. Okay. Okay, this is the tomb of Baba Muhyiddin, the only Sufi shrine. Can you hear me? The only Sufi shrine in North America. There's a big, very interesting farm, and there it is. That's the inside of that the place. That's his tomb. This is a picture I got, of course, from Google of Ibn Arabi in Damascus, Syria. So here you have a tomb in the west, 20th century saint, and the 13th century saint who came from the west to the east. And that is the inside. And these are the terms I spoke about. Marifa at the very top is mysticism, the term for mysticism in Islam, which is basically knowing. How do you go back? Oh, well, forget it. I would like to go back. Let's see. Okay. And the mirrors or the realized beings are called axis or poles, the depth. And there's the point of convergence. Let's see, okay. And Tawheed. Tawheed is the crux of Islam, which can be translated as oneness, the crux of Islam. Qalb is the heart. Haqq is the real, the truth, a very powerful name of God. You know, God has 99 attributive names, adjectival, sifat. Tawheed, taqwa, and tawakkul, that's the paradigm to the mystical journey for the Muslim. Oneness, vigilant, taqwa is Tawheed is the oneness, vigilant awareness is the taqwa, and submission is the tawakkul. The glory in Islam for the Muslim is to be in total submission, the slave of God, Abdoul, you know. Okay, where is that? Okay. The Insani Kamil is the perfect man, the one who is realized into perfection. Anybody can become that if they cultivate that constant awareness and become the mirror reflecting the divine. Okay, now let's go to the next one. And this was the circle I kept on talking about. That center is the only truth. And
excuse me, if I could ask you to come to a conclusion within about 2 minutes, if you could.
Okay, okay. I'll just go to pictures. Okay, that was what Dr. Pemberton spoke of. I tried to bring that, the mirror in the heart and the surrender and self-giving. And this is Baba Muhyiddin, and anybody to find out more about him, that's the website, www.bmf.org. And that's imagined, I don't think there's any painting of him, so somebody must have imagined Ibn Arabi. And you have the Muhyiddin Ibn Arabi Society, excellent site to find anything about him. Okay, I'm done.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Okay. Instead of pausing for any questions of clarification right now, to let you know, Doctor, the part where your voice started breaking up a little bit was after you had finished the discussion of Al-Insan al-Kamil, and it was a couple minutes after that. The couple minutes that followed on that discussion. So what I would say is let's hold off on questions for now, and we can come back at the very end of the panel for some further questions about this. But there has already been a request in the chat. If you might be willing to share the text of your presentation, people can get in touch by email, by private chat, if they're interested in the text of your talk. So our third presenter is Dr. Abdulaziz Gaye of Pennsylvania State University. He holds a bachelor's and a master's and a PhD in Arabic and Islamic studies from the University of Geneva in Switzerland. He has taught the Arabic language and world religions at Nazareth College before finding himself currently at Pennsylvania State University. Dr. Gaye's paper is entitled "The Naqshbandi Haqqani Sufi Order Approach to Peaceful Coexistence." Dr. Gaye, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Father Welle. Can I just share my PowerPoint document, please? Yeah, yes, just 1 minute. Okay. Thank you very much, Father Welle. Thank you also to Barbara and Saeeda for their great paper. I would like also to thank Nazareth College for giving me this opportunity to speak about the Naqshbandi Haqqani Sufi order approach to peaceful coexistence through Maulana Sheikh Muhammad Nazim al-Haqqani word and action. As the presentation time is limited, I focus today on Sheikh Muhammad Nazim al-Haqqani teaching on peaceful coexistence. This presentation is divided into 4 main parts. The first part introduces briefly the Naqshbandiya and the Naqshbandi Haqqani order. The second part studies the theoretical dimension of Maulana Sheikh Nazim teaching on peaceful coexistence. And the third part focuses on the practical dimension of his active teaching on peaceful coexistence. And the last part is about Sheikh Nazim's solution to end violence within families, communities, and society. Now let's start with a very brief presentation of Naqshbandiya in general and Naqshbandi Haqqani Sufi order in particular. The Naqshbandi Sufi order is one of the school of Islamic spirituality originated from the earliest day of Islam. The Sufi order has always played an important role in the life of Muslims, especially in Central Asia and in India in the past, and in modern time in China and in former Soviet Union, and in Europe and North America today. The Naqshbandi Haqqani Sufi order has several branches, including the Naqshbandi Haqqani that we are studying today. The Naqshbandi Haqqani is named after Maulana Sheikh Muhammad Nazim al-Haqqani, who was the 40th Sheikh of his Naqshbandi branch. Sheikh Muhammad Nazim al-Haqqani, known in the West as Sheikh Nazim, was a Turkish Cypriot Sufi Sheikh and the spiritual leader of the Naqshbandi Haqqani. Sheikh Nazim spent several years in Lebanon and in Damascus, where he met and lived with his master, Sheikh Abdullah al-Dagestani. Sheikh Nazim traveled within Europe in the 1970s and in 1990s to the United States, where he has many followers. The Naqshbandi Haqqani is developed and spread by Maulana Sheikh Nazim al-Haqqani in Europe, in North America, in Asia, in the Middle East, and in Africa. Today, the Naqshbandi Haqqani is one of the most diversified current Sufi order with millions of disciples around the world. This may be one of the reasons that impelled Sheikh Nazim to spend all his life preaching the peaceful coexistence between different races and religions, as we will see in part 2. Now we are in part 2. The theoretical dimension of Sheikh Nazim's teaching on peaceful coexistence appear in two main principles. Firstly, his adoption of the Quranic principle of Rabbaniya, or Rabbanism if you like, and secondly, his adoption of the principle of love and be loved. Regarding the first principle, which is Rabbaniya or Ribbiya, it has been mentioned 4 times in the Holy Quran, in chapter 3, verses 79 and 146, as well in chapter 5, verses 44 and 66. For example, the Quran say in chapter 3, verse 79, be Rabbani, and the verse was ما كان لبشر أن يؤتيه الله الكتاب والحكم والنبوة ثم يقول للناس كونوا عبادا لي من دون الله ولكن كونوا ربانيين. Now let's see how Sheikh Nazim defined the principle of Rabbanism. According to Sheikh Nazim, Rabbanis mean to be with Lord and for him. To be with Lord, we need to know him and worship him exclusively. And to be for the Lord, we need to educate people and do good deed for everyone, regardless of everyone, regardless of his origin, faith or religion. According to Sheikh Nazim, all religions are based on the principle of Rabbanism, and all prophets had called their name by saying Rabbana, which means our Lord, which is one of God's favorite name. In addition, Sheikh Nazim believed that a Rabbani person should always seek the divine presence, worship God, and also seek God's satisfaction through helping all human beings regardless of their faith, races, or origins. Finally, Sheikh Nazim insisted that the concept of Rabbanism eradicate all obstacles within and between religions. Now let's see how to solve religious problems through Rabbanism. On the 9th of October 2020, Sheikh Nazim made from his hometown of Lefke in Cyprus a speech about the notion of Rabbanism and how it unify Muslim as well as non-Muslim. He described his speech as a special declaration different from others in order to satisfy all nations. On how the Rabbanism unify Muslim, Sheikh Nazim reminded his attendees that the Prophet Muhammad said that his nation would be divided into 73 sects, but at that night, the divine, I think I skipped something. Sorry, I touched something here. Yeah, but at that night, the divine revelation that he received aimed to end that division and the use of any other appellation except Rabbanism, since Muslims are wrongly identify themselves through various groups and names. Sheikh Nazim started with his own Islamic past, which is Sufism, affirming that the heavenly inspiration that he received at that night had made at end of using the word of Sufism forever. Since God has never revealed his name in the Quran, Allah did not say in the Quran, be Sufi or be Naqshbandi or be Qadiri or be Maulavi or be Shazili or be Salafi or be Wahhabi or Shia or anything else, but he said, Kunu Rabbaniyin, be Rabbani. Then Sheikh Nazim called Muslim, Christian, and Jews to eliminate their division by identifying themselves as Rabbani. Finally, Maulana pointed out that if the follower of Islam, Christianism, and Judaism identifies themselves as a Rabbani, that would destroy satanic plan that cause division among and between religion through name and title. So now, let's see how to be Rabbani according to Sheikh Nazim teaching. Sheikh Nazim al-Haqqani ended the night speech of October 10th, 1910, by explaining how human beings become Rabbani. He mentioned a hadith al-Qudsi, which is a sacred tradition, in which Allah say, "Oh, my servant, follow my order. I will make you a Rabbani." You will say to a thing, be, and it will be. So to become Rabbani, one should just perform God's recommendation and avoid his interdiction. Then God will make him Rabbani. Sheikh Nazim advised everyone to try to be Rabbani, which is the highest level of servanthood that eradicates religious problem. Finally, the Sheikh affirmed that his speech on the principle of Rabbani had never been delivered before. This principle is his first and main theoretical teaching on peaceful coexistence. Now let's go to the principle of love and be loved, which is his second main theoretical teaching on peaceful coexistence. On May 5th, 2013, that means less than 1 year before he passed away, Sheikh Nazim delivered a lecture based on two words, love and be loved. He explained that these two words have a cause and effect relationship. In other words, someone who loves will be loved back. But on the other hand, if you do not love, you will not be loved. Beyond the cause and effect relationship between love and be loved, Maulana made other arguments in his different speeches in favor of love, or why we should love. Firstly, Sheikh Nazim believed that Islam and all religions are based on love. Secondly, for Maulana, human beings are honored by God who made them his representative on the earth. So no one should dare defile their honor or oppressing or murdering them. People should instead be generous to all human beings. Thirdly, Sheikh Nazim affirmed that the salvation of human beings is in love. Everyone should love God, his prophets, and his creators. Finally, he believed that the divine love is integrated into all human beings so that they spread their love to all creators in order to be in harmony with God's will. But this divine love may manifest temporarily and seem to evaporate entirely. However, spirituality helps to unlock this divine love and bring inner peace. Now let's see how to love according to Maulana Sheikh Nazim. For Sheikh Nazim, love based on ego is not love. And what is commonly called love is just a mutual understanding to support each other's egoism. According to Sheikh Nazim, the real love is a spiritual love of all human beings for the sake of God. For Sheikh Nazim, love is the water of life, and the divine love connects human being souls. That is why people become sad if they are not loved. Finally, Maulana explained that the main cause of hate in this world is Satan, who is the main enemy of humankind, who teaches his followers not to love human beings, but to destroy and kill them without mercy. So those who oppress, crush, and weaken people are on Satan's way. Now let's conclude this presentation with the practical dimension of Sheikh Nazim teaching on peaceful coexistence and his practical solution to end violence in families, communities, and societies. The practical dimension of Maulana Sheikh Nazim teaching on peaceful coexistence may be summarized in three main points. Firstly, his speeches were translated into concrete action, beginning with his own personal involvement in building bridge and peace between religions. He made numerous travel and trips around the world to meet with common people, regardless of their faith and religion. Sheikh Nazim met with Jewish, Catholic, and Orthodox church leaders, as well as the head of other religions. For example, on November 3rd, 1994, he attended the opening of the Sixth World Conference on Religion and Peace at the Vatican, presided by Pope John Paul II. And on June 1st, 2010, Maulana met with Pope Benedict XVI in Cyprus. Secondly, unlike many Muslim saints and scholars, Sheikh Nazim reveals having spiritual connection with some Christian saints, such as Saint Nicholas of Flue and Saint Barnabas. Saint Nicholas was a Swiss hermit saint and hero, whereas Saint Barnabas was the patron saint of Cyprus and the founder of the Greek Orthodox Church. Finally, Sheikh Nazim recommended his follower in Switzerland to visit St. Nicholas Burial Chapel situated in the center of Switzerland. He used also to ask his follower who came to visit him in Lefke in Cyprus to visit the shrine of St. Barnabas located in the northern part of Cyprus. Indeed, it is very rare to see a Muslim scholar or a saint who recommended Muslims to visit the tomb of non-Muslim, as Sheikh Nazim did. Now let's conclude this presentation with Sheikh Nazim's practical solution to end violence in families and in the world. To build peace in this world, Maulana Sheikh Nazim recommends to start from families, then communities, then societies. To end violence within families, communities, and society, Maulana proposed several things. Firstly, to teach children three important principles, which are friendship, loyalty, and honesty. Sheikh Nazim believed that all religions have taught these three principles, since the future of humanity depends on friendly, loyal, and honest people. But to get these three characteristics, according to Maulana, people should have a real belief and practice their belief, knowing that they are not supposed to live alone in this world, but they have to live in this world with others, with friendship, loyalty, and honesty, without any egoism. Secondly, people should be able to forgive each other. Sheikh Nazim believed that forgiveness is an important characteristic of good people. It gives them honor and prevents enmity and revenge. Maulana stated that revenge is forbidden in all religions and totally prohibited in the Naqshbandi Sufi order. Any Naqshbandi who took revenge is expelled from this tariqa or this way. Thirdly, people should first start implementing good action and manners within their family, then within their neighborhood, then within their community, and then in the whole world. Fourthly, people should live in peace with their neighbors. For Sheikh Nazim, neighborhood is not only the immediate houses, but 40 houses in every direction of someone's house. He or she should look after them and be in good relationship with them. This community should live as one family. Fifthly, to bring world peace, we should first have peaceful heart and inner peace. According to Sheikh Nazim, the best way to achieve this is through spirituality and through a spiritual guide who is himself at peace. This master and his followers should focus on the heavenly station, since there is no peace in this world as long as human beings are only attached to the material world. In addition, Sheikh Nadim believed that the religious people have more responsibility than anyone to bring peace to this world by establishing peace in people's heart, but they should first have peace, peaceful heart and inner peace to bring peace to people's heart. Finally, Sheikh Nadim called for the banning of production of weapons, since Rabbani does not harm anyone, even an ant. So those who kill people are not Rabbani, but followers of Satan. Thank you for your attention. Thank you.
And thank you very much, Dr. Gaye, for this presentation on Sheikh Nazim al-Haqqani. It was charming to hear all of this from Cyprus. I was blessed to visit that island 2 years ago for the 800th anniversary of St. Francis and the Sultan, and because St. Francis supposedly passed through Cyprus on his way to Egypt, and was able to visit some of the sites that you mentioned. So thank you very much for this introduction to a figure that at least I was not familiar with.
Thank you.
So we have three very different papers over the course of this. First, I'll perhaps ask if participants have any questions of immediate clarification for our third panelist. Any simple questions of fact before we open to the bigger questions. Are there any immediate small questions for our third panelist before we throw the floor open? Okay, I have not seen any questions typed into the general chat, so we'll just open it up now. If anyone has a question, please raise your please raise your hand and indicate to which panelist you would like to direct your question. Otherwise, I will invoke moderator's privilege and ask the stuff I'm interested in. So the floor is open.
May I start?
Yes, please, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you very much for all of the presentations. They are very wonderful, especially Dr. Pemberton's poetic analysis of the poetic expression. Now, my questions start with something that is simple, that is addressed to the last two speakers, and that is with regard to the concept of Abdullah. How do we translate this concept better in our American context, in which the word slave or slavery has very negative connotation? So when we translate Abdullah as the servant of God, for example, it sounds like we are invoking some theological or mystical justification for slavery. With regard to Dr. Gaye's presentation, you talk about the concept of Rabbaniya, in which the concept of Ubudiyah also takes place. So I would like to get some insight on how to best translate this in our context, where positive peace is articulated not only the negation of conflict, physical conflict and warfare, but also the promotion of values that we dear. Thank you for both.
Can I attempt that? Dr. Welle? Hello? Okay. But thank you so much for the question, because this is something I'm dealing with every time when I am with my Western friends. And they are very inclusive people, well educated, they have the knowledge of Marifa or Islamic esotericism, but they cannot accept the slave of God. They cannot accept the submission, the surrender, both. It's very hard to translate abd. So it's either submission or surrender. So they say, oh, I see, why should you be a slave and why should you have the military surrender? And the first answer is, we are not submitting or surrendering to a human being. It's outside that. We are submitting to the only reality, which is actually our true self. That's what the mystical thing, the Insani Kamil that I spoke of, and I don't know how much the audience missed, is that every single individual has a potentiality to become the Insani Kamil, and that is when we can overcome our ego self, which is not the real self, which is part of the creation, and merge into the true self, which is, metaphorically speaking, a ray of the sun being the metaphorical representation of the truth, or God, if you may say so. So that Abdullah is the glory of a Muslim. To be the slave of God means to be in the true essence of our self, which is the reality. So I don't think I may or may not succeed. It's how much our heart can accept. We can only attempt to explain it to the West. But I always have trouble with that. I always have footnotes or endnotes trying to explain this in my papers.
Dr. Abdoul Aziz, or should I say Dr. Servant of the Glorious, did you have a comment on this one?
Thank you so much. I think for concept, we don't need really to translate them, but because there is no one translation of any Arab word. You know, if you open any dictionary, you know, you will see many kind of definition according to the context. But for Abdullah, I think in the Muslim context, instead of using like slave, we don't use it generally, but it's better. I think it's better to use the servitor of God. I think servitor may pass. And for Rabbani, I would use the Rabbanism and use the definition that Sheikh Nazim has given, which is like to be with God and for God. Yeah, that is my quick answer to that question.
Our next question belongs to Dr. Elizabeth Adams Eilers.
Hi, Zakiya.
Hi.
It's good to see you again. And I just wanted to ask, since we're talking about words and how words indicate the holy, isn't the first pillar of faith the Shahada? Is that what it's called, the Salat, the first pillar of faith? And in that pillar, in that prayer, God is one and Muhammad is his prophet. Isn't that how it goes? So my question to you is, you know, I've been musing on Ibn Sina's use of the word necessary existence as an essential name for God, and not an attribute, not something that is in some way derivative, but is essential. Would you say that God is the one, especially since it's used in that very important pillar of faith, means that the one would be an essential name for God? You know, something like necessary existence. We can see how Ibn Sina would use that, because without God's existence, nothing else would exist. So I'm just wondering, if the one is used as one of the 99 names, that's one question, which would be maybe an attribute, or is it seen as the necessary word I don't know if describe or define may be a little bit too heavy. So I'm just musing. I'm wondering what your thoughts are about that.
I can just continue musing with you without trying to answer that question, because whenever it comes to philosophy, I'm totally lost, and I don't relate to philosophers at all. You always quote Ibn Sina, and I'm like, forget it. You know, so, but anyway.
I'm going to convince you he's a mystic. I know. I'm going to do it.
Okay, so now anyway, the essential oneness is all I think of, because the attributive 99 names, except for a few, like one of them is Rab, they are given to us to contemplate and realize those, because we can actually realize those. Even the ones that seem to be very powerful, actually, we can do the experiential aspects we can go through. So yeah, that's why I keep on saying that Tawheed is the crux of, is not saying it's axiomatic, all the scholars know that, is the crux of Islam. And so that's the essential truth of God. And at that level, there is no labels at all. You know, it's just a realization into that oneness. So I don't know if it answered your question. And the first pillar of Islam is basically, we need the pillars are just exercises, which are the foundations of our beginning of our progression, which will stay there. But it's like a Shariat, they're the part of the Shariat. And then we have the Tariqah, that is if we want to join the mystic path. And then we have the haqiqat, the truth, and then we have the ma'rifat, the knowledge, and then we kind of disappear into the Sufiyat. So that's why I have such a problem with people who label Sufism as a separate branch or something. And when one is there, one doesn't say I'm a Sufi, one is just is.
Right.
He just is. You know.
Well,
and the second part of that pillar, it actually is Muhammad Rasulullah is basically completing the prophetic legacy, starting with Adam being the first perfect man, the first insan kamil, and we are all trying to be that, come into that primal nature. So he is the completion of that legacy.
Thank you. One of the reasons I started musing about this question is because of your hesitancy to, I think I heard that, to equate the word Tawheed with even kind of grasping for a meaning, as if one and unity, maybe one or unity, either one would be an equal word for Tawheed. But you weren't quite willing to, I don't think, to say that, that Tawheed is somehow, I kind of got the feeling that the concept of Tawheed is bigger than other words. I don't know, was I right about that? Yeah. Okay, so that's the reason I was asking a question for, further understanding.
Yeah, it's ineffable, and we are so lost with words when we're in the mystical realm. But yes, I would rather go with Tawheed and not even translate it. That's why I keep on repeating it, because unity. I remember when I was much younger, I used to use unity, and then oh my God, it's just not enough. As we progress into this realm, we just find the words are so limited.
Right.
Actually, translation. When you said that holy indifference, the indifference that. That's why I love the interfaith discussions, because that was like Elizabeth just said it. It is holy indifference. It talked about all the cutting of attachment that Buddhism speaks of, and Islam speaks of, and it's big. And Mr. Eckhart spoke of, and Margaret put it. It's like it's everywhere. That's the holy indifference, the cutting of attachments to the temporal. We can be very rich, no problem. We can be rich, but the thing is, don't get attached to that realm.
Right.
If I could throw in a question then about a different word, and I'd like to address this to our first two panelists, but perhaps to Dr. Pemberton first, because we haven't heard from you in the question and answer. I'd like to ask you to expand on the word heart, because heart is one of those joyfully pregnant words that that's difficult to define. And certainly when we talk about Sufism, definitions are not definitions in the restrictive sense. They're always kind of fingers pointing at the moon. But nonetheless, I suspect that in American society, when people hear the word heart, there are a lot of incorrect connotations that they take up with this word when they hear it, by comparison with the with the poetry and the other citations that we heard about in your presentations. Can you give me a synthetic idea of what of how you understand the heart, or at the very least, how some of us get the heart wrong?
I cannot claim to be expert in all word meanings, but I believe from what I have read and what has been expressed through poetry that I can understand, that heart is so much more than emotion or just feeling. It is a deep knowing. I did note, and it in my paper, it says the heart knows God, the spirit loves God, and the inner soul contemplates God. So it's really more of a totality of the being that first the heart knows, has an understanding of. It's more than emotions. It would be a deep knowing, and maybe someone else could do more of the Arabic. You could do more of the Arabic.
When you used those three in the paper, the word for the inner soul is sirr, S-I-R-R. Yeah. So that's what prompted the question. It was that paper. It was that.
I have seen that word. I have seen that.
It was that portion of the paper that prompted the question.
That's what I was saying. It's important. Can I share the screen with my with kindergartenist drawing, because that's brought in the heart, and maybe partially it'll answer the question. Let me see if I can bring that diagram. How do you bring that in? Select. I can't. Anyway, let me try to.
But Patricia, does she still have co-host to share her screen?
Yes, she does.
I can share it?
Yeah.
Okay, but it's not coming up. Maybe I'm not doing it. Oh, share. Okay. Oh, sorry. Okay, there you go. I have it. So the heart, and everybody can see it, if the sun is the truth, the haq, the metaphor of the sun being, of course, God, and all the rays are going to every bit of creation. The ones that come to humans are the end point of, that's the essence, is the secret within the heart. And the job of of every human being has the potentiality to realize it, to be aware that within it, that secret is called the sir, and it is within the heart. So the heart is the seat of knowledge of everything, because intuitive knowledge comes, which is recognition. Knowledge actually is ultimately, we all know it's rediscovering, returning, everything, going to the primal Adamic nature. So that sir, I try to put as a little light. And as Bawa said, when you are lit, nobody sees the bulbs. We are bulbs, but we are lit when we have completely aligned ourselves to that. So the heart also, in the word meaning, taqallub, it also means one of the speakers actually spoke about it, that it turns and turns, so God is turning the heart. And in the Quran, it says, understand everything with the heart. The mind, Baba used to say, get rid of the monkey mind, try to rein in not get rid, he said rein in the monkey mind and go into the heart for the truth. So I can't even tell you how important the heart is. Does this diagram make any sense? I don't know. This heart is the qalb, and inside is the truth, and that truth is within us, and we have to align with that to go to our true self. And that's why that hadith, like, know thyself and you will know me. And that thyself is our true self, which is no more the temporal self. I don't even know whether I answered your question, but I tried.
When I have read in Sufi literature about the distinction between the spiritual centers, the lata'if, the heart and the spirit and the sir, the inner secret. I have never seen a diagram more valid than that one. So in that sense, I'll say I think you're on. You were trying to diagram the inner life of a person. That's a difficult task.
Thank you.
Are there other questions? Otherwise, I can always invoke moderator's privilege again. Okay. In that case, I have a question for Dr. Gaye, and it's is it Gaye or is it Gaye? Pardon me, Doctor.
Gaye.
Okay.
It's written in French.
Okay, very good. I'd like to ask you about this notion of Rabbanism, and specifically. So when I look at the example of a number of Christian mystics, I'll also speak first about Saint Francis. Saint Francis is associated is considered this person who saw God in all persons and all things. He saw God in nature. He, more than any other Christian saint, he is famous for his capacity to perceive the divine in all persons and all creatures. But if we look at his spiritual journey, the way he got there is by being intensely Catholic for a long time first. It was only through really drilling down on that deep belonging to a particular tradition that he was able to get to the wider vision. So I wonder, in the case of Sheikh Nizam, when he speaks about this Rabbanism, on one hand it sounds wonderful, but practically speaking, is it possible for an ordinary believer to get there without passing through that intense belonging to Orthodox Christianity or to Judaism or to Shi'i Islam or Sufi Islam or something else before becoming Rabbani?
Yes, that's a very good question. Sheikh Nazim didn't ask anyone to not follow a way, because he's a Sufi and he's a Muslim. But what he was trying to say is like the way that we look others. You cannot reach the divine presence without taking away, or a tariq or any way. It may be any religion. But once you reach there, normally you should look everyone like a servant of God. So you serve him, that you are saying serving God. He never said that we should not belong to a religion or a way, So Rabbanism is very interesting, because even in Judaism, they have that notion of rabbi. It's the same, really. It's the same notion that they have there. But again, what he means is the way that we look others. And everything is based off humility, When you reach God, don't think that nobody will not reach him. Even doubt that you already reach it. So everything is, according to his teaching, everything is based of humility. But you need a way to reach somewhere. It may be it may be any religion or any spiritual path.
Thank you.
Yeah, that will make my short to answer.
Okay. I believe we have time for one last brief question before we close the panel.
I just want to comment on Dr. Pemberton's poems again. What a beautiful collection you made. If you could send it to me, I would be so appreciated. I mean, oh my God, I was so completely bowled over. I'm giving everybody my email. Let's see. Well, I think I put it in because.
Yeah, you did. You put it in once already.
Okay. Yeah, it was.
And I will note that Trish has put in the chat a link to the evaluation for this panel, so all of us are encouraged to fill that out. In some of the other panels, people have requested a chance to stay in the chat for longer, to stay in the Zoom for longer and continue the conversation. And because this is the last panel of the day, that will be an option now. So I'd like to bring this panel to a conclusion. Thank all three of our panelists. But when we conclude, the Zoom will remain open if we would like to continue the conversation. I will admit it's midnight for me, so I'm not going to continue. I'm going to bed. But I'll see you at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning, New York time, with great joy. We thank you very much for your participation. Thanks again to our panelists. Please fill out the evaluation, and blessings and peace to you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Sweet dreams.
So.
Okay.
Bye,
Someone has
Barbara.
a poem for me.
Okay, it's Ibn Sina. Okay.
Oh, excellent.
Now, it's translated into Victorian English. Okay, so there's another. We have to translate that too. But anyway, it does. I think if you listen to it, you can hear of some of both of you and Zakiya in the poem. Okay, of what you said today. The name of it's Poem of the Soul. And by the way, the translator is Arthur J. Arbery.
Oh,
University.
good.
Okay, all right. Out of Poem of the Soul. Out of her lofty home she hath come down upon thee, this white dove in all the pride of her reluctant beauty. Veiled is she from every eye eager to know her, though in loveliness unshrouded, radiant. Unwillingly she came, and yet perchance still more unwilling to be gone from thee. So she is torn by griefs. First she refrained, being all unaccustomed, but at last, when she was firmly knit, she loved the use of being neighbor to this arid waste. And now methinks she hath forgotten quite the tents where once she dwelt, the far abodes she was so little satisfied to leave. So being now united with these depths, and parted from her sandy hills of yore, her wings are heavy upon her, and she rests dejected mid these waymarks and mean mounds weeping. Yet she remembereth not her home of yore, until her tears abundant flow, and she not yet set forth. But when the time is nigh for her departing to that place, and near the hour to be upon her way, unto the broader plain, then perching high upon the topmost steep, she caroleth. For knowledge doth uplift the lowliest heart with ken of every hidden mystery. And all the world returning, still unstopped the orifice of heeding. And it proves her coming down was necessary woe, that she might list to truth, else all unheard. Why then was she cast down from her high peak to this degrading depth? God brought her low, but for a purpose wise, that is concealed even from the keenest mind and liveliest wit. And if the tangled mesh impeded her, the narrow cage denied her wings to soar freely in heaven's high ranges. After all, she was a lightning flash that brightly glowed momently o'er the tents, and then was hid as though its gleam was never glimpsed below.
Ooh.
Have
you loved that
Huh?
always?
Pardon me?
Have you loved that always? When did you find that? How did you find that?
A professor by the name of Mahmoud Ayub at Temple handed me this poem, gave me this poem one day after class, and I've kept it and loved it ever since. It's a little not well. I probably shouldn't say anything because the tone is, there's kind of a sacredness to the after effect, you know, of listening to it. That's happened to me, but it's a little bit. I've wondered about the earth as being. I mean, from a Franciscan point of view, the earth is also a very sweet abode and a place of God's presence. So there is a sense of I mean, I was wondering if there's a sense of matter versus spirit going on here. But on the other hand, I 100% believe it and love it. So I don't know how to reconcile that little reticence, you know.
And I think you let that go. I mean,
Yeah.
that's not what it's, the spirit of who did it. It doesn't relate into
Don't
his,
think about it. Yeah,
in
just
his,
you feel it with the heart.
yeah, in
I can
what he
type
is
it for
doing.
you and send it to you if you'd like
I
for me
love
to.
this. I'm sure I can find it. I would love it. Can you?
Okay, good. Pardon me?
I'm sure I can
Well,
find it.
if we could scan it, I can send it to you by scanning it. I looked for it online and I haven't been able to
You
find
haven't been
it.
able to find it. Should I put my email in the chat? Or do you have our emails? Do we share emails?
No, not for this, but you can always put it in chat and whoever wants
I'll put it in chat because I have yours. Zakiya, I have yours. And let's see, how do I put mine?
I just put it in the where we message it.
Yeah, I'm doing the messaging too. Let's see.
Yeah, you could send it your email to me and I will copy it down.
I think I'm doing it at a Zoom group. Let's see.
Okay. So Zakiya, did I convince you that Ibn Sina is a mystic?
You know, people can write, people have mystical moments. I have mystical moments. I'm not much of a mystic, but I
Yes, you are.
I aspire to be one. But I'm sure, I mean, I don't know enough about him. I'm just teasing you. I don't even know
Okay.
enough.
You just to get me to respond and for us to get a conversation going.
Yeah.
Everyone
terrible.
must look up YouTube Ground Zero Ode to Love. He does it in French and he does it in English. Of course, my students love it when I find rap artists that do all of this, but it is Ibn Arabi. It's direct from his work. They were very surprised.
I'm going to look it up.
Did you, I'm sorry, Dr. Pemberton, what did you say, YouTube?
You can just YouTube it, or if you just look it up, it comes up if you Google Ground Zero
Ground Zero Ode
to Love. Should I put this in the chat too?
Yes, please.
Okay, here we go.
Elizabeth, wasn't a presentation that cherry on top?
What's that?
Cherry on top. I just loved it so much.
Oh, I'm so glad. I didn't know. I was worried. I had to pick so little of all of the poetry that I had, and I felt like I had made it such a skeleton that there wasn't anything left. But it was so much fun.
It was so much fun. It was so much
Well, it's
fun.
inspiring. And it's, yes, and I've been at this a long time finding poetry. But really and truly, I was in New York at this conference, the one that was on ecology, and this marvelous, humble young man got to the up to the stage and read his own poem about a tree. It was about a tree.
Well, I think you mentioned that in your
It was a tree, but it was God. Our from earlier, our Jewish rabbi woman would love this because it was like a tree of life. She would have resonated with this poem. I wrote it down as fast as I could, but everyone was drawn to him. You just couldn't wait for the conference to be over to go find him And his eyes just gleamed. He had drawn us in. He absolutely drew us into conversation. And that's when I knew this is what will help students to make this a little more personal or something. It definitely was more personal. But then they found the rap, and that, you know, that brought it to the generation. But he was a very young man, though, actually.
Did you follow up on him to see, you know, where he appeared again, or
no?
what he's doing?
He was a scholar at Harvard, and I intended to. I probably could.
Yeah.
But I wrote him. I hand wrote him a note. We passed notes for the few days we were there. It was very encouraging. See, if we could just be in Rome.
Oh my God.
Exactly. I had counted on going to Assisi too, you know?
Yes, that was my main thing. I teach a course in sacred space.
Oh, how
so I
you're so blessed.
I
So
direct our
great.
honors program, and I take all of our honors freshmen on a sacred space tour to a synagogue and to different places that are available to us, to the mosque. And the idea of being able to go to more sacred spaces, every time I'm in Europe, I try to go to as many as I can so I can talk to the students about it. And I was so excited about Assisi. And maybe we can talk them into doing something in Rome next year.
Well, why don't we continue this conference next year?
Yeah.
Yes. Papers, invite more speakers, and people who've already given a paper will have to do something different. But they could still give a paper as long as it's something different.
We'll just
say part two.
Part two.
Part two. Let's put that. See, Dr. Shafiq told us to send him ideas about next year's conference. We'll do that. Part two of this one.
He'll listen to you, Zakiya. He'll listen to you.
Yes, he would.
Really, if all of us, just at least let's start with us three.
Oh, you know, great idea. Let's put it on the evaluation forms. If maybe the evaluation form has that question, do you have any ideas about things for another conference? And if it doesn't, you could supply your advice unasked. You know, somewhere, put it somewhere on the questionnaire.
If it doesn't have it, we'll email them.
Well, it's such a profound collaboration, the Vatican and the Hickey Center. What a profound collaboration. And that's what we need to say needs to continue. It's not just the location, but it's the incredible collaboration that they have orchestrated. And I would guess they would be very flattered to hear that we know that that's really cool.
Right. I wonder if Pope Francis had anything to do with this, or is this just something that one of his so-called agencies, you know, the Islam Christian interreligious dialogue agency they have, if they came up with the idea. But I would imagine that I know that Pope Francis sanctioned it. I'm sure of that. I mean, he approved of it. But you know, I think we should. I think we should just kind of push this, and we can be even a nuisance. We can be a gadfly.
Typical womanly conspiracy, female conspiracy.
I'm all for being persistent.
Right. Well, the word gadfly has been raised in, you know, because of up as something to look highly upon, because even though it is an insect that drives horses crazy, Socrates used it in some of his dialogues to point to the way he teased out truth, you know, so.
I like it.
Yeah.
I love that so much.
Right.
Can I share a story, please? Since I mentioned Socrates, I have to share this story. I grew up, my father saying Socrates was a great prophet. You know, he always said that God has been sending prophets throughout different times and climes, and Socrates was definitely one of them. And one day I was wondering, why did my father always say that? So I had these 3 volumes of wisdom excerpts on my headboard. My headboard is also a bookshelf. So I just, I mean, it was just a divine intervention. I just pulled out volume 1, which was of course ancient. And behold, when I open it, and it just opens on death of Socrates. And he had this very rich, I call it Sahaba. In Islam, we call them prophets of companions, Sahabas, like the apostles of Jesus. And we'll call them Sahaba. So I found that, first of all, I realized that my dad was right, because he had these apostles who actually disseminated his teaching, just like the 12 apostles did, and so on. So, and always I find one of them is rich, okay? So Krita was the rich one. So he decided that how he can't allow him to die, because the world would be losing such a great figure. So he basically bribed his way in and arranged for an exile. You do know that if you're in exile from Athens, you can come around, but you can never come back, but you'll be in exile, but you can live outside Athens. So he got in, he had the boat ready, and he got in, and he was going to talk to him, but he saw he was sleeping. So he thought, oh, okay, I have enough time. And he sat outside the prison, and he was surprised to see how peacefully Socrates was sleeping. He said, how is this man who is going to be executed in the morning sleeping so peacefully? And then Socrates wakes up, and they said, Krita, what are you doing here? And he said that, oh, I came to take you out. You are going to escape. And they said, because, you know, you have so much to teach. And then he said that, and I'll listen to this. Oh my God, I was crying when I read it. He said, the one, and he just went like that, the one, capital O, okay, the one who sent a gadfly like me to guide people will be sending gadflies like me throughout the ages to guide people. If I had an agreement with the Athenian court that if they allow me to speak, I will submit to their verdict. What kind of a teacher will I be if I break that promise I made to them? But you know, when you said gadfly, and to me, what was not at that moment, not the gadfly, but the one who sent me, you know, the Tawheed, you know, as a Muslim, that was, oh my God, he was a prophet, all right. You know?
Yes. Good. That's a good story. Thank you.
Gadfly, my new word for the day.
Gadfly? Gad.
I like it.
Have you ever tried to get, you know, you've been standing by a horse and there's a gadfly bothering it and swishing its tail as, you know, quickly as I can to try to swish it away. And so it needs the help of a human to catch it. And when I was growing up, that used to be what I did for my horse. You know, I used to try to catch the gadfly to receive my horse's love, because those things really sting. Now, I think Socrates thought himself as a gadfly that just caused motion, but not the kind that stings. You know, which is what they really do, is they sting if they can ever settle. But the gadfly was just moving around, is constantly moving around, first here and there. So maybe that's how he uses that image, that figure of speech. I don't think that he actually had I don't remember reading any of the Socrates dialogues that showed him stinging the other person with some, you know, negative remark or something. So anyway, I'm sorry, I'm just having fun.
Not in his method.
Continuing to have fun.
That would not be his method.
No.
That would not be his method. But I do love the word. But if you catch one of these things to spare your horse, does it sting you?
No, it really doesn't. It's not interested in me. It really wants the blood. It likes to land on veins, on the horse's veins, and suck the blood very quickly. I mean, those poor horses, that's why if you've ever seen two horses together and one's at the head and one's at the tail, That's so they can swish away each other's flies, and also to keep the flies away from their heads, mainly, you know, because they hate to have stinging around their heads. The poor things, they really suffer in the summer.
Amazing.
Yeah. So I don't know.
Absolutely amazing.
You can come out and visit me and watch gadflies stinging horses. If you
where
want to.
are you?
I'm in New Jersey, but they're not my horses. They're across the street. We didn't get horses this time. Yeah, they're. But you could come visit and see it happening. I'm in Monmouth County, New Jersey.
Well,
it's, yeah. Where are you again?
I'm in Arkansas. Arkansas. It is a beautiful state. I had never seen it till I was recruited to teach here, but it's absolutely beautiful. And I'm a cat person. My husband lived in Saudi Arabia for over 10 years to work there. So he took a job there so I could research. And we rescued 5 kittens from the desert. And we brought 4 of them home to Arkansas. And I have just lost them. The last one just passed, and I'm heartbroken. But I loved my kitties from the desert so much.
You know, you and I share something very much in common. We just buried our favorite cat day before yesterday.
Oh, it's so hard.
After taking him to North Star Vets in an emergency situation, and thousands, actually, I hate to admit it, thousands of dollars.
Oh, yeah.
And the 2 of us adults, bawled like babies, because he's been our companion for 16 years.
Yes.
And they could not save him.
No. My kitties were my companions while my husband was overseas. I would join him during sabbatical and Christmas and summer vacations, but otherwise I was home with my kitties. They were my life. My children were grown and gone, and it was really, really, really hard. But a friend reminded me they had a life, you know, with us that they would not have had. And so we have to rejoice that they had that time, because my little kitties would have died in the desert. We actually rescued them, you know, so. But I still miss them a lot. The students keep trying to bring me cats, and I don't want another one.
No, we don't. We have 2. We had 4. Now we're down to 2. We don't want any more. This is it, you know. But I didn't know. I didn't know my heart was going to hurt so much. And I'm a little bit
for a long time.
Yeah, I thought, well, I'm ready for this, because he'd been unwell for a year, and I thought I was ready for it, but it just hurts. Yeah.
You know what I missed? I wanted to hear the session that was opposite going on at the same time, because the gentleman that did one, animals and Shinto, didn't you want to?
Yeah. I did want to hear that, but see, they record these sessions.
Okay.
So we probably can get access to it.
I'm really interested in that. I'd like
Plus, I don't know hardly anything about Shintoism, so I want to learn about that too, you know.
Well,
do you know something about Shintoism?
A good bit. I have a friend, a colleague who lived in Japan for 25 years, and I paddle around behind him to learn from him. I've had several students choose to move there, and so I try to learn, but the idea of animals in Shinto, I don't know that correlation at all. So I look forward to listening to his paper.
I'm supposed to be a scholar of world religions, but I'm mostly, my focus is on Islam, Judaism, and Christianity, and really it's Islam and Christianity.
Yeah,
and I have fallen in love with Islam.
I know.
Well,
I'm the same scenario. World religions have to do it all.
Are we doppelgangers?
Yes, yes. I hope so. Yes. I fell in love with Islam, and I never dreamed I would, but I can understand people who love a text, because I love text. I love to study text. The East is much harder for me to grasp, but I worked on it on purpose in my PhD program, because I knew I was weaker at that. So I've spent a good time on it, a good bit of time, but I'd much rather really just study Islam.
Yes.
I have to tell you, ladies, we were just speaking on background here, how impressed we are that so many, you know, white ladies are interested in Islam, and that they're not, you know, from New York, where I am from, you know, because that's rare. So congratulations and thank you.
Well,
you're
Gaye.
just an
I mean,
hour away
seriously.
from me, I guess. So are you in New York City or are you?
I'm originally from New York City, but Nazareth is upstate near Rochester.
Oh, you're at Nazareth, of course.
Yeah.
Okay.
Not
Yeah.
only did I love Saudi Arabia, which a lot of the wives there really didn't, I just loved it. But I had an opportunity to do a National Endowment for the Humanities Institute on American Islam. And I was in DC, and they brought to us all the scholars that you would ever dream of talking to. It was unbelievable.
That's
And it was like
wonderful.
pinch myself every day. I wish that could happen again. And that really set me just really wanting to study Islam.
What year were you in Saudi
Oh,
Arabia?
I'd have to look at the picture. I can tell you because I have a picture. I'm not sure, I don't remember.
You must have had the money then.
Right?
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
it was 2015.
Okay, well, the money was less, but still, they still had it. They won't be doing it anymore.
And it's so sad because it was profound. It
Yeah, I
was
can
absolutely,
imagine, yeah.
it was profound. It's a real shame.
Well,
See, we could be in Rome having coffee.
well,
Next
now
year,
let's not
next year.
We have formed
Yeah,
a
but
pact,
Letitia, you are
and we're going to approach Muhammad and
I keep telling him.
ask him
He
if
has
we
access
can-
to
if we can go to Rome.
Go to Rome. I was
Yes.
only working for him for about a week when he said to me,
Doesn't matter. Let him know of those 3 old women who
well, you know, Father Jason
really
Welle,
hell
who
bent
was
on
the
having the
moderator, he was the co-sponsor, and he was really the one that was putting it on for us. So I think, and he's still very, very willing to do it. So
wonderful.
Yeah.
He's marvelous. Can
he
you,
really is.
would you pass on to him how very, very, very much we really want to continue and we want to be there? And
I absolutely will. Yeah. He was surprisingly
work.
wonderful, and I was happy.
We'll be servants of the cause.
Servants,
work,
that's
we'll
correct.
help. Servants
No, I
of the
do. I like
cause.
servant better
We'll
than
work
slave.
and
I was
help to
thinking
get
about
there.
that.
Yeah. I don't know. I understand the slave idea. I mean, it's what you use is you use a word that's controversial in order to get your attention. You know, in Elizabeth in English, they used a word called conceit, and it's to point to what's called a radical symbol. And in this sense, I would say that the word slave could be seen as a conceit in order to startle your imagination, because it's something you ordinarily wouldn't use, you know, and it does, you know, bring you to consideration of those things that are repugnant to you. But on the other hand, you can see the other side. And I know that the explanation that Zakiya gave for the slave relationship, to me, works. See, that works when you talk about the infinite one, God, the Most High.
It has to be the intimate one.
So,
We have to understand. Is the tanzih part, tasbih part. The tasbih is the immanent one. Yes, it's connected to the intimate one. And I'm struggling how to convey it to the Western mind, who are so tied in with the baggage that of slavery in their mindset. Because
It's ownership, I guess, versus
ownership,
willingness to give oneself.
We don't own anything. That's the first message of Islam, is we don't own anything. God is, and that's it. God owns everything. Okay, and God is not human. So the very fact that human beings are trying to own something is the ultimate sin. I don't like the word sin, because in Islam, forgetting is what sin is. So we are forgetting that there is God. So that's the sin. There's no such separate idea of sin. You remember.
Turning away. Yeah, I've always understood it as, you know, you can be facing God, and as you're turning away, that's what sin is, right?
Yeah, you said it. So that's why there is no ownership. What do we own? We own nothing. That's why we can be wealthy,
Exactly.
but we can't be attached to it because we don't own it. It's a
And that
blessing.
becomes most obvious when we're wrapped in a shroud and put in the grave.
That's right. That's right.
So,
It's like birth, right? It's like the opposite. It's everything, instead of everything getting bigger, it gets so narrow.
Mhm.
And it's just back to you again.
Zakiya, where are you? Where are you located? Where are
I'm
you?
in Philadelphia. I'm exactly where Bawa is.
Okay.
You know,
Close.
he's just an hour away. His shrine. Do
Well,
please visit us. You're welcome to stay with me.